Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a single document holding the key to potentially wiping out all your personal debt, and maybe even fundamentally reshaping your understanding of how government and finance truly operate. That's the really extraordinary claim at the heart of our deep dive today. We're delving into a truly fascinating and, yeah, quite controversial audio source titled Your Birth Certificate is Worth Billions, Pay Off Your Debt.mp3. This isn't just about, financial tips. It's a complete reinterpretation of how our personal identity, our governments, and even the global financial system supposedly work.
It really is. And what's truly intriguing about this source is how its speaker masterfully weaves together historical anecdotes, specific legal concepts, and a powerful message of personal empowerment to present a very distinct worldview. Our mission, as always, is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight directly from this material, helping you understand the arguments and claims being made, no matter how surprising or, well, unconventional they might seem.
Right. So let's start with the biggest one. The very first and perhaps most audacious claim the speaker makes is that your birth certificate can literally wipe out all your debt.
Yes, that's the core of it. The source posits this radical idea that everything is effectively prepaid because of your birth certificate bond.
Prepaid.
That's the term they use. And they claim this applies to an incredibly vast range of financial obligations, from judgments, lawsuits, credit card debt, child support debt, all the way down to traffic tickets and even any violation.
Wow. That's quite a sweeping assertion. How does a birth certificate, which, we typically view as just a simple record of birth, how does it supposedly hold this kind of power? What's the hidden mechanism at play here, according to the source?
Well, the speaker's argument hinges on redefining the birth certificate, not just as a record, but as a registration into a corporation.
A corporation.
Yes. They assert that this act of registration is the pivotal moment where you unknowingly give away ownership over to something else.
Okay, giveaway ownership. That introduces a truly radical twist to the narrative. The source goes on to claim that parents signed this birth certificate under duress, without what they call full disclosure of what they were actually agreeing to.
Exactly. And this concept of what makes a real contract is absolutely central to the speaker's entire framework. As defined in the source, a real contract must be between two human beings with full disclosure and require two signatures, not significantly between a human and a corporation.
I see.
So by this definition, the birth certificate, because it lacks that full disclosure, becomes a form of signing us off to the state where the state would own us. That's the claim.
So if the birth certificate is the initial point of entry, the sort of problematic contract, then the speaker next unveils the idea that the state then creates a name for us. This name, often seen in all capital letters on bills and official documents, is presented as distinct from how our name is really written, like on the birth certificate itself, perhaps.
Precisely. This capitalized name, the source claims, is a legal fiction. The speaker even references Black's Law Dictionary, the 7th edition, which apparently defines a person as potentially representing a corporation.
Okay.
So in this context, the legal fiction is essentially a corporate entity created by the state, separate from the living, breathing human being.
And why is this distinction between the living human and this legal fiction corporate name so crucial in the source's argument? What's the significance?
Well, it matters because, as the speaker asserts, for corporations like the United States of America Corporation, which, interestingly, the source claims is listed on Dun & Bradstreet,
Okay.
for that corporation to join her or operate in commerce with an individual, that individual's name has to be a corporation, too.
So it's like corporate entities can only legally interact with other corporate entities.
That seems to be the idea. A key tenet here is that a corporation, the source states, cannot attack a human being, a living man or a living woman, unless they are in a contract through this corporate identity. This is their explanation for why our capitalized name becomes so important in legal and financial interactions. And the source takes this idea a significant step further. It claims that registering with a birth certificate means you are registering to enroll in the private federal democracy of the District of Columbia, aka the United States.
Right, DC.
And this act, they argue, effectively makes you a federal 14th Amendment U.S. citizen, which the speaker describes as being a federal employee of the state or corporation.
A federal employee, just by being born and registered. That's unexpected.
And if we're essentially federal employees or even these corporate entities, the speaker suggests this makes you a shareholder of the corporation.
Mm-hmm.
From there, the source astonishingly asks, shouldn't you be getting some money every year, which is maybe $300,000 a year? Yeah, it's a striking figure. They use the example of Native Americans, some of them, I think the Cherokee, who received checks from a casino as a kind of parallel for this purported entitlement.
Okay, that's a lot to take in. The source then shifts gears a bit, delves into a specific historical claim, stating that the United States Corporation went bankrupt back in 1933. This, they argue, is a really pivotal moment in understanding our current financial predicament.
It is. They explain this bankruptcy as the Federal Reserve replacing the Treasury. The Treasury, prior to this, held Treasury notes, which was backed up by real gold, real silver. The speaker frames this as a fundamental shift away from, asset-backed currency.
So if that's the setup, that historical context,
Yeah.
how does the source then suggest this alleged 1933 bankruptcy continues to impact us today? What are the ripples?
Well, the speaker asserts that Federal Reserve notes, which is, the U.S. dollar, but also things like pounds, your Australian dollars, it's all of that Mexican peso, are all essentially funny money or debt notes with no backup.
No backup at all.
Other than, and this is their phrase, people's hard work and toil and labor. It's a complete reevaluation of the nature of global currency, basically saying it's all based on future labor.
Okay. And this leads to another truly unexpected claim, doesn't it? The source posits that because of this national debt stemming from the bankruptcy, we were collateralized under the UCC-1, which is the Uniform Commercial Code.
Right, the UCC, International Laws for Commerce.
Exactly. But the source remarkably claims this very system, usually for property liens, was used to essentially turn us as individuals into collateral, going so far as to say we were collateralized as agriculture to handle the debt,
Right.
likening people to cattle. That's quite an image.
It is a very strong image.
Yeah.
But despite being collateralized, the source claims we are also, paradoxically, beneficiaries of this same corporation.
Collateral and beneficiaries, how does that work?
It's complex,
Okay.
but they then make the bold assertion that your signature, like when you sign a credit card slip or a debit slip, that signature has a lien on that and is actually worth millions or billions of dollars, or maybe even limitless.
Limitless value in my signature. That's a significant leap. How does the source connect our signature to such immense, limitless value within this framework? Where does that come from?
This takes us into a more abstract, almost philosophical realm. The source claims that because we come from the earth, we are considered movable property, unlike fixed assets such as land, real estate.
Okay, movable.
And because, in their view, this high-up so-called elite family,
Hmm.
the powers that be, cannot put a lien on property unless it's movable. They supposedly slapped a lien on us and slapped a lien on our signature.
So because we're movable like property, our signature carries the weight.
It's a highly metaphorical, almost allegorical explanation. It suggests our very existence tied to the earth makes us movable collateral, and our signature somehow represents that value.
Okay, so if we're caught in the system where we're collateralized but also beneficiaries with these incredibly valuable signatures, the source proposes a radical solution to reclaim this perceived power, becoming a secure creditor.
Right. And this involves using the very same UCC-1 system, the one typically used to file liens on assets like cars or boats, but using it to put a lien on our government franchise or the birth certificate name, the all-caps name, the legal fiction.
Put a lien on your own name.
Essentially, yes. The stated goal is to wipe out their debt, meaning the corporation's debt, the government's debt, not our own personal debt directly, by forgiving it with your golden signature. This implies that your signature, when used correctly in this UCC process, can somehow discharge or absolve this larger corporate debt.
Wow, okay. This process is described as taking back the estate or the birth certificate, which is a real estate, and rectifying what the source calls felony, treason, and even genocide. I mean, these are incredibly strong words.
Very strong. It's framing this whole situation as a massive, ongoing crime against humanity that this process can somehow correct. But the speaker emphasizes a peaceful way of doing it, operating on what they call the private side.
The private side, as opposed
to the public side. This means sending specific letters and notices to private corporations such as the IRS or local treasuries, rather than engaging with courts, judges, or traditional third-party creditors, which they see as part of the public system.
So avoid the courts. Go direct to the agencies.
That's the advice. The source specifically instructs listeners to demand paperwork to prove that they're even operating as a for-profit corporation from any third-party creditors. And, crucially, to request an original contract for any purported debt, the implication being that often one doesn't exist in the form they deem valid.
Interesting. And this perspective, this whole framework, it extends far beyond just personal finance, doesn't it? It touches on fundamental institutions like education and even parental rights. The source has a very specific and critical view on public schooling.
Indeed. The source strongly criticizes public schools, calls them the beginning of brainwashing, where children are taught to just listen to authority, like slaves. That's their language. And it claims that by enrolling children in public school, parents are effectively registering them, so that way they can take your children from you, calling the children your property, which is also property of the state.
That's a profound and frankly terrifying claim for any parent. So what specific action does the source suggest parents take to protect their children from this alleged state ownership? Is there a counter move?
There is, within their system. The solution offered is to put your children in on your UCC-1 as your collateral.
List your kids on a UCC filing?
Yes, and also to trademark their names on a federal level, doing so before the thing happens, meaning before the state potentially intervenes or tries to claim authority over the child based on that initial school registration or birth certificate. It's an attempt to legally secure ownership of one's children within this unique legal framework.
Trademarking your child's name. Wow, okay. And the source ties all these contemporary issues, the debt, the schools, the UCC filings. It ties it all back to historical events, tracing the roots of this perceived system back to 1871, presenting it as a long-standing narrative.
That's right. The speaker makes the bold claim that Abraham Lincoln was our last president who actually knew what was going on with the bankers. The source portrays history as this continuous war between the government, or perhaps the people, and these powerful financial entities, the bankers.
What's particularly noteworthy about this historical claim is the idea about Lincoln and money. They claim Lincoln tried to bring back the greenback, issuing treasury notes that had some backup, which was our gold and silver.
Directly challenging the bankers.
Exactly, a direct challenge, according to the source.
And the source concludes that Lincoln, in an effort to protect their wealth from the bankers, actually put a lien on all the Americans by invoking martial law.
Wait, Lincoln put a lien on the people to protect them?
That's the claim, a protective lien. And his assassination, according to the speaker, fractured the Constitution, rendering its laws inapplicable in their original form. This is presented as the fundamental shift, the historical break that set up the current system they're describing.
That is a sweeping historical revision. It suggests a fundamental and ongoing shift in governance rooted deeply in the financial system, tying the actions of Lincoln, or alleged actions, directly to the UCC filings and debt forgiveness claims of today. Okay, well, this deep dive has truly unpacked a unique and definitely challenging perspective on our financial and legal systems and even our personal sovereignty. It's a complex worldview that fundamentally redefines common terms and concepts we use every day.
It certainly does. It presents a compelling, if unconventional, narrative where our birth certificate isn't just an identifying document. But, according to the source, it's a powerful instrument that has been misused, and which, they claim, can be re-wielded to reclaim immense personal power over debt and authority.
And throughout this, the speaker in our source keeps coming back to this idea of inherent power, explicitly stating, we are also from the almighty source. We have the power to create our own reality as well.
Yeah, that theme of personal power and creation runs deep. Ultimately, this deep dive presents a worldview where much of what we take for granted about finance, law, and even our own identity is reinterpreted. It really raises the powerful question, if our understanding of these foundational systems were fundamentally different from what we've been taught, what other aspects of society might we need to re-examine? What else might not be what it seems?